Glad you have. So now let's talk about the lords of the Rashis. We know that the planets are our consciousness and the Rashis are our concrete environment. So naturally a certain type of consciousness is going to be more suitable to be expressed in one environment than in another. Let's talk about Venus, right? We have certain ideas and needs with regards to our Venusian life, right? Love and marriage, perhaps money and luxury. And all of those ideas and needs are exalted in Pisces because it's through the environment of Pisces where beauty and love and harmony is experienced to the highest degree, right? On the other hand, the ideas and beliefs we have about love and marriage are the least fulfilling and harmonious when Venus is in Virgo. So our consciousness really can express itself in favorable or unfavorable ways, really depending on the sign that a planet is in. That's why certain planets do better in certain Rashis. And even if there's no planet in a Rashi, there's still consciousness, embodied in that Rashi, and that is the consciousness of the Lord of the Rashi. So again, let's use Venus, right? We want to analyze Venus and sort of our Venusian experience of life, then we have to look at Venus and the signs of Venus. So if Venus is exalted, if it's in its own sign, if it has friendly influences, or perhaps if it's conjunct in Jupiter, then we know that yes, Venus is doing really well. If Venus is in bad dignity, perhaps it's conjunct Saturn or the moon, or it's ashamed, then there will be a problem in our Venusian experience of life, right? But that is not the complete picture, right? We also need to analyze Taurus and Libra, which are the signs of Venus. And if they are in bad shape, then it will be difficult to really enjoy this world. It will be difficult to enjoy our love life, our marriage, and all the other things that Venus rules, right? So to get that complete picture of a certain aspect in the horoscope, not only do we need to look at the planet, but we also need to look at the signs of the planet, right? And this is very, very important. If you only look at one sign or the other sign or both signs, but you don't look at the planet, you will miss something. Always look at the planet and look at the signs that it rules. And, Venus rules love and marriage. Venus is the fulfillment that we can get from anything outside of ourselves, right? The enjoyable, memorable moments with another person are ruled by Venus. Anything outside of ourselves that we can get that's beneficial, that's nourishing and fulfilling is ruled by Venus, right? And Venus is going to give that, but also it's going to do so through the signs of Venus. So now let's talk about Leo and the Sun, right? The Sun and Moon, they rule each one sign, and the other planets rule each two signs, and the Sun rules Leo. And therefore the Sun's consciousness is embodied in Leo, right? The Sun's consciousness is naturally expressing itself through Leo. And in fact, it is Leo that is just the ideal environment for the Sun to express itself through. And that's why, the Sun just does so well in Leo. Now, the Sun expresses what is true to ourselves through our inspirations, right? So the Sun wants to always express what they feel is, they always want to pursue their greatest ambitions that inspires them, to create their best possible life, right? And it is, the Sun, of course, that is a leader, and the Sun gives us basically that ability to take leadership over our life and to really create our kingdom, right? And it is really a kingdom that embodies who we are. The Sun, of course, also represents our body, who we are, and therefore the kingdom is really that embodiment of who we are. And the sun wants to do that through Leo, right? And the sun really wants to, create a world that is an image of who we are. And the sun initiates, it creates, it does things, but it also maintains those things, right? It wants to keep those things going and manage those things as well, right? And yeah, and so the sun is sort of constantly driven by a certain type of vision to create something, meaningful in this world that it really represents, the best that we can ultimately be, and that consciousness of the sun is really what flows through Leo. Now, any planet that is in Leo is under that same solar energy, right? They are in this space of the zodiac that is designed to create a kingdom, to be consistent, reliable, responsible, and to have that ability to be creative. And planets in Leo, they support the sun's ideas and desires of creating a world that reflects who we are, and through that to make everyone's life better. Now, which planets are actually doing good in Leo? Well, the planets that consider the sun as their friend, right? Which are Moon, Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury. The sun is an enemy to Saturn and Venus. So any planet other than Saturn and Venus is a great planet to have in Leo, because those planets, they feel comfortable there in this environment of creating a better world, right? The sun is trying to express and create its world through Leo. And no matter where the sun is, Leo is always part of that expression, and it's the ideal place for the sun to express itself. But the planets in Leo, they will determine how effectively that the sun can actually do that through Leo. And any planets other than Venus and Saturn in Leo are going to support that solar expression. But Venus and Saturn, they are going to reduce it, okay? And so if you're looking at career, at confidence, creativity, and the person's ability to grow into who they are, then analyze the sun, but also Leo as well, right? Always consider Leo for everything that you consider the sun for, and it will give you a better picture, right? So Leo is about where that sun's consciousness wants to express itself, create the world and its kingdom as an embodiment of who we are. So now let's talk about Cancer and the moon. The consciousness of a planet gets embodied in the sign that it's in. So when we talk about the moon, then the moon is going to express its nature, beliefs, needs, and desires in the sign where the moon is placed, right? And everything that has to do with how you feel and your ability to feel good about yourself is really embodied by the sign that the moon is in. And it depends on the condition of the moon if that experience is going to be better or worse, okay? So when we're talking about the dignity of a planet, then what it really is that the attitudes of a planet, they really get embedded in the sign that the planet is in and expressed through that sign, okay? And we usually just say this is the dignity and how well basically a planet feels there and how well he can perform there. But ultimately it's really that the planet's consciousness actually really gets embodied through that sign. Now, the moon is also, of course, expressing, whatever it feels, the fears and the hopes, etc., through its own sign, which is Cancer, right? Cancer is the ideal sign for the moon to express itself through, right? The moon is intimately connected to Cancer as the ruler. And yeah, so the moon is really all about fulfilling our need for love and contentment. Moon is all about fulfilling our needs, right? And there's two ways to do that. One way is that we can adapt to a situation in order to get our needs met. So let's say you go out into the sun, it's summer, it's really, really hot, and you really feel uncomfortable. Well, so what do? Well, you just need to go into a room with AC and you have adjusted and you feel better, right? So this is what the moon allows us to do. The moon is sort of able to change because it has a round body so that we can adapt to a situation in order to sort of always go with the flow and make us feel good, okay? And a round body can do that. So let's say you drop a ball on the floor, and any imperfection in the floor, of course, is going to change the direction of the ball, right? Or any slope that is there. When you drop the ball, it's just going to go into that direction, right? The sun is a square body. If you have a cube and you drop it on the floor, any imperfection in the floor is just not going to make a big difference, right? It's just going to basically stay where you drop it, right? But the round shape of the moon allows us to react and to change in such a way so that we can feel good, okay? That's why we also usually play a game, because the round body makes it interesting, right? It can literally go anywhere. And this is really what happens in our life. We have to sort of constantly adjust, every day, perhaps, every moment is sort of a different experience in our life. And the moon allows us to sort of react to those different experiences and to adapt and to go with the flow in such a way so that we can, be the most comfortable, okay? And this is really sort of the ultimate nature of the moon, to be receptive to all the pressures, the stimulations in the environment, and to adapt to it, to be comfortable. And a good moon can do that. An afflicted moon is not developed and mature enough to do what it needs, to create sort of that well-being and contentment in life, right? And it will find it very hard sort of to adjust so that it can feel comfortable and at peace. Now, Cancer, of course, plays an important role because Cancer is the sign of the moon, and it's where the attitudes and beliefs of the moon are embodied. And, Cancer really shows how well a person can adapt to a situation, but also adapt themselves, right? So that they can feel comfortable again. And so the moon and Cancer allow us to get our needs met in two ways. We can change a situation, and so there is going to be a new way to fulfill a need, okay? Or we can also change ourselves so that that need is no longer there. And it's the moon that basically does that. So let's say that you're stuck in a relationship. You're just not happy there. Well, you can adapt to the partner and you find different ways of how you can get what you need in the relationship, which is basically you find a different way to connect with the person so that you can get your need met for emotional fulfillment. Or you can change yourself and let go of that expectation and sort of just be happy with yourself, right? But these are the two ways that the moon adapts in order to be happy, and that is basically the ability of the moon and Cancer. So now if someone is saying that they never really get their needs met, then you need to study the moon and Cancer, right? If there is afflicted planets in Cancer, yes, then naturally they will struggle with getting their needs met. Afflicted planets are those that consider the moon as their enemy, and so naturally when they're in the sign of the moon, then they will just not be happy there and they will cause a lot of problems for the person, right? So Saturn, Mercury, and Venus, they consider moon as their enemy, and when those planets are in Cancer, then this is of course going to really diminish a person's ability to adapt to a situation, to adapt themselves, to get their needs met, right? And those three planets, they are really going to suffer in Cancer. because the moon is going to project all of its needs onto those planets where it just cannot get those needs met, okay? And therefore the person will just always sort of feel like that they can't get their needs met. Now, on the other hand, though, if the Sun, Jupiter, and Mars are in Cancer, that will help sort of our ability to be comfortable, make ourselves feel good, right? Because they actually consider the moon as their friend, right? They will feel delighted in Cancer, and so these are the best planets actually to have in Cancer so that you can actually be happy. Now, Mars, of course, we know is also debilitated in Cancer, right? Mars does get delighted by the moon, and it is helped by the moon, and so he actually feels sort of emotionally fulfilled, right? He can adapt to a situation to get his needs met. However, because he's debilitated, the way that he goes about it might just not always be the best, right? Because he's sort of avoiding any type of conflict, any type of, improvement. The way he goes about is just not straightforward, and that can cause a lot of problems, and this is something that the person also needs to learn so that they can really ultimately, maximize their ability to be happy.